This is LXBN TV, and I'm Colin O'Keefe. New York's Stop and Frisk program has always been controversial for a multitude of reasons, but now that we've built up a large body of data on the impact of the law, particularly with regards to its handling of minorities and marijuana possession, it seems the concerns are warranted. Joining me now to explain is attorney Jeff Greco of Greco and Associates and author on the New York Criminal Law Advisor. Jeff, first, can you explain how with New York stop and frisk law, the goal and the results have ended up very far apart?
Absolutely, Colin. You know, the NYPD stop and frisk has been going on for roughly over 10 years, or at least 10 years, where they have been supplying statistics that can be reviewed and analyzed. Initially, the program was thought of as a great way to keep or get the streets safer, to get as many guns off the streets from criminals as possible, and that this was the most effective way to take weapons or potentially criminals holding weapons, take those off the streets. It never went out the way that they were hoping it to be. What it has turned into has been rather more of a circus act than anything else, and what we have seen is a huge disproportionate number of people. I don't even want to use the word suspects, because in over 90% of them, they were innocent. So innocent citizens that are doing nothing wrong at all, that are being subjected to stop and frisk, all under the guise of we're trying to make the streets of New York safer, when it's really nothing more than accosting citizens who haven't done anything wrong at all. And over 90%, or I think it was 87% of those that were subjected to the NYPD stop and frisk were either black or Latino. And which I think anybody who has seen anything in the news, even relatively in the last year or two, knew that those statistics were probably right on cue with what everybody assumed they were going to be. Now, what I think they weren't expecting was just how disproportionate the number of actual weapons, which, remember, that is what the program was designed to do, the actual number of weapons that have been recovered as a result of the stop and frisk. And I believe that they had, I'm referencing 2012, they had over 530 stops where they conducted frisks in 297,000 of those. Now, so you're looking at almost slightly more than half of those stopped were actually frisked. And I'll go into that in just a second. But of those almost 300,000 frisks, they found a weapon in just under 2% of the time.
Wow, but pretty alarming. And second, you wrote specifically on the law's disproportionate impact on minorities when it comes to marijuana possession. What are your thoughts here, and what should be done about it?
Part of that's an easy question. Part of it, I think, is a very difficult one to answer, one that no one's been able to figure out. Statistics have shown that they have made more arrests for minor possession of marijuana than any other crime at all, which that is not what this was about. But like with any other law enforcement initiative, they've got to be able to justify their actions, even if they're incorrect or even if they're taking someone's civil liberties away. And at least they can say, well, we might not have been able to get all of these weapons like we were hoping for, but look at all these drug dealers and look at all these drug users. So at least it looks, I think in their eyes, it looks a little better than them just being able to say, well, we're not really sure why it's not producing the results we were hoping for. We're violating people's civil rights day in and day out, but here's what we've got for it. And I think that's what we've seen consistently throughout the years, is that they have been patting themselves on the back with the number of drug arrests, which are not crack cocaine dealers. These are teenagers, typically by and large, I think between the ages of 14 and 24, that have minor amounts of marijuana in their possession, which typically it's an arrestable offense in New York if it is in possession in plain view or if it's being burned openly in public. So the fact that they've got it in their pocket is of little consequence to anyone, but that's what they're using to try to build up their numbers and gain further support among the politicians and law enforcement brass. Now, the other question is, okay, so now what do we do about that? Well, hopeful is probably the right word to say, that with a new administration coming in, Bloomberg going out, that we may have somebody who's got a fresh set of eyes on this and say, you know what, you've had over 10 years to prove that this was not going to continually violate innocent citizens' civil liberties, and you came up very short of that. We're going to end this program altogether.
I see. Well, it's going to be interesting to see how the political process plays out and what impact that has on this law. Once again, that was attorney Jeff Greco of Greco and Associates. For his full insight on this controversial law, be sure to visit nycriminallawadvisor.com. And of course, as always, if you're not already watching us here on LXBN, visit LXBN.com for more of these video interviews and curated commentary from our network of more than 8,000 lawyers. Thanks for joining me today, Jeff.
Thanks so much for having me, Colin.